Yeah, that one was Patch Adams.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it was kind of being like a guest type role.
yeah, he would go around and cheer those kids up who had cancer and stuff. Right, that was that movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, this movie also, of course, stars Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke is he is Neil's roommate in the movie, Todd. So very, very young Ethan Hawke. Of course, Ethan Hawke's a very famous actor now as well. So here's a movie where you see him as when he's really young. So and of course we have Kurtwood Smith from the '70s show, right? Kurtwood Smith plays the father, Mr. Perry. He's also, of course, known for the '70s show. I'm sure many of you have at least seen clips of the '70s show if you haven't watched it yourself.
That movie must have come out after the '70s show because he looked a lot younger in the movie. I don't know when the '70s show exactly come out, but he looks a lot older in it than he did in this movie.
Yeah, this came out in '89. I think the '70s show came out in the early 2000s. So yeah, very probably a 10 or so year age difference. Kurtwood Smith was also in RoboCop. If you guys know the film RoboCop, he was in it as well. So of course, there's the '90s show. It's on Netflix now. I haven't gotten to watch it yet, but I want to. So yeah, lots to say about the movie. Of course, this movie is about it's about this prep school for well-to-do children, right? Of very of respectable parents. This is a private school. Usually these private schools, especially these elite schools, have a long history of tradition and excellence in their academics, right? Lots of these schools are like feeder schools for the big Ivy League institutions like Harvard and Yale and Brown and so forth. So the movie's about that, but of course it's about tradition in education and upsetting tradition in education. Mr. Keating definitely sort of goes against the status quo as far as like what a high school education is. He's more of a college professor type of character here in a high school. But it's about movie's about a lot of stuff. It's about valuing the beauty of poetry, right? This is something that I try to do in my courses, but it's about trying to appreciate poetry as being more than some dry thing you read in lit class, right? It's about trying to really dig deep and appreciate the beauty and the aesthetics of literature. But of course, it's also about family and family dynamics, right? So this movie's got a ton of stuff to discuss. And also, there's lots of good film techniques in the movie too that we shouldn't leave behind. Meredith, I'm going to call on you soon, but I really enjoyed your post about the film techniques. So I'll ask you about it in a second. Shout out to Meredith. She wrote a good one. So, well, let's start with your general impressions of the film. Like, what did you guys think of this film? I know a lot of you guys are Robin Williams fans from the first day of class. When you mentioned, a lot of you guys mentioned Mrs. Doubtfire as a favorite film. And what did you guys think of his performance and everything else with the film? So who wants to kick us off today?
I will. It was a really good movie. I enjoyed seeing him in a more serious role. I know a few other people have mentioned earlier that, you know, it was interesting to see him in a serious role. I think he did really, really good with it.
I
Right?
agree with Holly. It was nice seeing him play a serious role, and he done an amazing job at it.
Yeah, you can kind of see his comedy chops coming out here, right? Even within the serious role, like a more stern-faced actor, right? Like Morgan Freeman couldn't have played this part, right? Just because it takes someone like Robin Williams, I think, to bring this character to life.
Right. I think his general like comedic demeanor was really good for playing, you know, Keating being kind of an eccentric teacher. It paired really well and gave a lot of comic relief to the drama of it all.
What do some of the rest of you guys think, building on what Holly just discussed?
I think he done a really good job. It's kind of hard to take him serious though, because I think one of the first movies I ever seen him in was RV,
Hmm.
and like just seeing him come from a movie like that to one of these, it's just like you said earlier, Jim Carrey. It's kind of hard seeing him in like serious roles and stuff, but I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah,
I,
go ahead,
I'd
Muhammad.
like, yes. First of all, I'd like to thank you personally for giving us this opportunity of watching this group of films. They are just very relevant and to the point. What I'd learned and I'd like to discuss about this film, it's not one thing. It's open on different interpretations, as you know. And first of all, I'd like to say that even it was, I mean, released in the 90s, I mean, more than 30 years now, it's still related to where we are, I mean, to our societies in terms of the relationship between parents and kids, and in terms of schooling. In the school, if you see the way kids are taught and the traditional ways, traditional methods, they are there. This is a very serious problem. And the school refused or didn't accept anything that is as a renewal, to renew, I mean, the methods, to bring a new teacher with a new perspective, new approaches, to give, I mean, to encourage students to think critically, okay, and freely. This was, I mean, was not accepted, I mean, at school. We are going to talk about school and the way that, I mean, it's showed I mean, in the film. And even if you want to discuss even the positions of the cameras and the speeches delivered in the school, we will talk about this. When we come, I mean, to talk about parents, we know this, and this is the very truth, okay? Okay, in the film, I enjoyed most because I grew up in a society like this, and I think even in the US, we still have this kind of people. We know that as a human being, we are not the same. We will never be the same. When it comes to our mind, the mechanisms of thinking, how we think, it's impossible and it's not possible. We need to talk to our parents. We need to talk to our kids to convince them and explain to them that it's impossible to form an X job for this kid the way you think. Okay, a lot of families want their kids to be science students, which means literature or letters is not okay. It's not accepted. I want you to be a doctor. I want you to be an engineer. I want to be this and this and this. So even the father in the, I mean, Neil's father, if you remember, I mean, in the film, Neil's father was there as a person who is not, I mean, who doesn't accept any question. You as a bossy father, do this and this and this, and there is no, I mean, there is no room for choosing another path if you want to work as an actor or you want to, I mean, to do something that excites you, okay, in this life. It's not allowed, and this is really related to our society. we need to change this mindset. We need to convince our parents that it's impossible to teach or to, educate our kids with the scenarios, with the strategies of yesterday to be engaged in the tomorrow's society. And personally speaking, I appreciate this when it comes to teaching. As a teacher, I always keep updated. I teach myself, I learn new things. I want to teach or to show my students the way we have nowadays, not the techniques I learned yesterday. And this is the problem we still have in our schools and in our families. This is why we are going to talk. I think for me, this is why I want to talk about.
Yeah, you gave us a lot to go on there, Mohammed. You mentioned, of course, teaching methods in schools and how schools often are stagnant, right, with their teaching methods. But also
And we feel so sorry. We feel so sorry because students are the victim because of these strategies. Okay, they always we have this kind of teachers. We still have this. I'm talking to you, and I know what I'm saying. I'm responsible for my words. Here in Bluefield, we have this kind of teachers. I'm not going to give, for example, names but accept it or not. This is the reality. Some teachers just there in a traditional way, and they cannot, give you something in which you feel that you create something. Creativity is not there. Unfortunately, this results in, students, I can say they can find no link between what they learn in the classroom and the reality.
Yeah, I'm sure some of you guys have probably experienced classes like this, right? The stale lecture classes, right? They tell you what to think rather than how to think, right? They teach you
Yes.
what. I see you nodding there, Josh. Have you been in a classroom like that?
Pretty much all of my classrooms throughout grade school, middle school, and high school have been like that. 90% of them at least.
Right. Yeah, the standard boring lecture format. Yeah, of
I like
course,
that you, sorry,
no, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Mohammed, I like that you mentioned how that this movie is still relevant today. I found that really interesting because the movie is set in the 50s, but made in the 90s. And then, it still holds up even today. So I think that really shows that even though it's an older story, it can still be used today. And that kind of backs up the fact that it is still really relevant.
Yeah, like even speaking within my own field, of course, Holly, you're in my class last semester, right? Even speaking within my own field, which is literature, right? I still see a lot of traditionalists who teach like the old man does in the movie, right? The old man at the end teaches like that. So when it comes to teaching poetry, that's a
That's why
complex. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's why I like young people, youth, to take the torch of teaching, because we need to change things. Because we are tired of all that kind of strategies. That is just lecturing and memorization. Just memorizing things. We need those people who can, motivate you and just give you the opportunity to think differently and think freely and think out of the box. That's what we want in our schools. If we want to, advance, as you see, the film tackled this problem years ago, and we refuse to learn from it. The film is a message to the society, and it didn't succeed to change. What should we say? We say that, are there any people who are against change? Maybe they don't need, to change. They want to give, stick to the past and to the old traditional classic, traditions and methods. We need, if you go in teaching, you will find a lot of innovative new approaches that tackle everything, every situation. They are there. You need just to practice. Give freedom to your student to create, to innovate, to do something. It's not just, I feel, so sorry if my students come to my classroom. I'm not talking only about me. I'm talking about teacher. As a teacher, if your students comes to your classroom and step into your classroom without participating, without giving anything, you so sorry about, it's just a waste of time. Give, at least you need just give them to do something. At least when they come there, we can say, okay, they did something.
Right, rather than just sitting there taking notes the entire time, right? Active learning.
Yes.
Yeah, always get a kick out of this movie with the way that, because Keating tells them to rip the page out of the book at the beginning when they're trying to measure a poem on a grid or whatever. That's like
I'm
like
giving you, I'm sorry, I'm giving you 1 minute about in my BA degree in Morocco. I had a teacher, at the university, and we had applied linguistics. I swear that he has a copybook, and the copybook I think was from 1990. It got yellow. The paper got yellow because he's always turning the pages and lecturing. Write down. He don't understand anything. I'm talking about this kind of teachers.
right. Yeah, the way that he has to create at the beginning, like we'll measure Shakespeare like this, right? Compared to Byron, who's like this, right? Yeah, that's always interesting. Daryl and Holly were both in my lit class last semester, where I had you guys write poems, your own poems, right? But you had to conform to the sonnet style. So yeah, that reminded me of my lesson.
Do you teach poetry? This year?
Yeah, in my world lit, we read. a bunch of
Yeah.
songs.
What literature?
Yeah, we
One
read-
simple question. How do you deal with those students? Because it's not, familiar with me. In Bluefield, in Bluefield, you can have students who are science and students who are literature. And those who are science have nothing to do with poetry, the meter, the rhythm, the rhyme. And how do you, do you do with this in literature? World literature, to explain to them? Do you need to explain everything from the beginning, then you move to criticism of poetry? It's a little bit hard for them. I had some students here in Bluefield College University, and they have, they struggle with this kind of in literature in general.
Holly or Daryl, one of you two want to answer that question? How did you handle the learning of poetry?
Throughout middle school and high school, I knew a little bit about poetry already prior to the course. They mention it a bit. Maybe in 7th or 8th grade, you may write a small poem or two, and you study, like a little bit of Shakespeare, a little bit of Edgar Allan Poe. Mr. Yeager, I've had him. This is the 4th time, so I might be a bit shaky on the memory of every specific detail of all the classes. But I remember writing that one poem, and I had never had to write it in such a specific style before, so it was a bit tough for me. I just gave it my best shot, and throughout the class, we studied a lot of older literature, older styles of poetry and different forms of it, and maybe some people had a bit more trouble with it, but I think because I had learned it in the previous grade levels, that You know, I already had a bit of a basis for it.
Right? So it's a matter of expressing your creativity, but still within the genre, right? So within the genre of sonnets in this case. I'm more of a traditionalist when it comes to my poetry. Like my aesthetics, I love the old sonnets more so than probably like more modern poetry. Like I'm old, I'm very old school in my poetry tastes.
That's kind of my issue with writing poetry and writing in general. I really like to write, but I have such a hard time conforming to all the rules of it because I want to do a different thing. So that's kind of always been my issue with it.
You would be a very good modern poet, Holly, because modern poetry really doesn't have any rules. So, for better or for worse, however you look at it.
I agree. I'm like the same way. Like I cannot write and have certain rules to me writing, but I'm just like I like to write freely.
Yeah, the Mr. Keating's teaching in the movie is very heavily based on the philosophy of transcendentalism from American Lit. Of course, transcendentalism comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he quotes, and of course, Henry David Thoreau, who wrote Walden. I don't know if any of you guys in here have taken the first American literature, but Emerson and Thoreau are both very concerned with breaking out of tradition, right? Do your own thing, be your own thinker. Don't conform to what anybody else wants you to do. And that in turn created American poetry, right? Because before that, Americans tried to mimic the Brits. And this kind of gave us their ideas helped to spark this more free-flowing poetry. Walt Whitman is quoted a lot, right? Oh, Captain, my Captain. Walt Whitman is one of the great transcendental poets. So, yeah. If any of you guys heard of that book before, Walden by Henry David Thoreau, that's where the quote comes from. I want to suck the marrow out of life, right? That is frequently quoted in the movie. It's a great book. It's about a guy who decides to live off the grid. He builds his own house. He grows his own food. He makes his own clothes. It's a book about the value of living simply. So I would encourage you guys, if you're interested in something like that, one of the great classics in America. Yeah, Keating quotes from him a lot, so I figured I would bring up the idea for you. But to kind of ground us a little bit, I'm especially interested to know what you guys think about the effects of Keating's teaching, right? So do you guys feel like perhaps he took it too far, right? Like especially with Neil, right? Neil, maybe he sparked something in Neil, but at the same time, Neil committed suicide in the movie, right? Because he felt like he was unable to break away from his father. And I don't know if you can necessarily blame Keating for that. They definitely do in the movie, right? But perhaps if Keating would have, I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? But perhaps if Keating would have stuck to more of a traditionalist way of teaching, maybe Neil would have went on to be a nice doctor like his father wanted. right? So,
But- But if you see, I mean, the teacher, I mean, he does, I mean, he did his job well. If you remember in a sequence, he was asking Neil, if you if you taught his father about his dreams, his passion, and he said, yes, I would say, I would face them, and they would. And if you see that even the personality of Neil was very fragile one, very weak one, he was afraid of his father. He cannot face and confront his father. And when it comes to, to the dialogue that he has with his teacher, he asked them, he guided him. He told him what to do. Okay, your father wants you to be a doctor, but did you face your father and did you tell him what you felt? He said, yes, I did. But when his father drove him back home, and he was just giving him the orders that I'm going to take you to a military school and so on and so on. Here, he asked them, you don't know how it felt. And he says, his father asks him, how does it feel? Can you tell me? It means another opportunity. Tell me, how do you feel? Why do you? He said, it's nothing, which means I can say, as we said last time about the warden, the prison warden in the film, it's a coward action. He didn't express himself. He didn't tell people what about, especially the closest one. Father, even if we talk about the mother was not there, was just can literally say absent, and even her presence in the film was not there. So maybe I can say it was his fault. He didn't tell his parents about his passions and his dreams. And this is the problem here. To make a suicide, it's not the solution. Solution is you face, you see, okay, you tell your parents. I know if we see the film, I know if we see it and we say, okay, Nell, according to his parents, was invisible, okay, is not considered. If you see even the position, mother is sitting, Nell is sitting, the father is standing. And during the performance, the father was positioned higher, which means, and Neil was on stage, which means that the decisions or the orders were from one direction. Were vertical. And here we say, from one side, I can say the Neil was wrong. He had a mistake because he didn't tell his parent about his interest, about his passion. And the father, again, this is the same mistake we make in our society. Whenever we talk to our kids, from the very beginning, from the the early stages of education of our children, the child is this way and looking at your father this way, which means you are superior than your child. It's a mistake. Even psychologically speaking, they encourage parents to sit down, even on your knees, and talk to your kid and ask them and try to use something like participative approach. You need to take his opinion. You need to ask your kid about his dreams. You need this. So there was, I'm not going to blame the father. I'm also blaming the kid. Didn't express himself, and father didn't know how to deal with the kid. This is what I want to say about this part exactly.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Muhammad. If you go and look at that scene, he's standing up and Neil's sitting down. The camera is looking through Neil's perspective for a low angle shot, looking up at him. I see it's making him look like he's larger than life here, right? An unsurmountable obstacle. You're right that the father does give him a chance to talk, but does he really though? Like, it's probably just say it. I'm not going to listen. Get it off your chest at least. That's kind of the tone that he takes there.
I don't think the dad would have ever supported his desires to be an actor because he was so dead set on Neil becoming a doctor. And I think Mr. Keatings helped the boys realize to follow their own dreams and not what others expect from them. So I don't blame Mr. Keating. I blame the dad because I really don't feel like he would have ever listened to Neil about what he truly wanted. Because the dad, he was he was a douche. He didn't care about what Neil wanted out of his life. He expected Neil to be a doctor because that's what he wanted.
Yeah, very well said, Zoe. Um, he's very selfish, right? He's always talking about the sacrifices he made for Neil. So he's-
Exactly, like the sacrifices you make are not something your kids have to do. They can choose for themselves. They are literally a person. They have their own mind to choose.
This is a case where you see parents trying to live vicariously through their children.
Definitely, and
Um,
like, it brings up like the topic that like parents are normally like their kids' first bullies.
What do you guys think of this idea? Have you guys dealt with, I don't know if you guys are within earshot. I don't know if you guys are living with your parents or like you maybe within earshot or whatever, but have any of you guys ever felt these expectations? Like my parent really wants me to do this. Have any, or maybe seen it from someone else? Have any of you guys ever dealt with those types of expectations from your parents?
I would say, if you allow me, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
would tell you my story with my parents. My mom didn't go to school, but my father wants me to be a math student. I mean, to study mathematics because my other brothers are I mean math students and scientific students. No one is there, even in my large family. No one. I mean, it was shame for us there. It's just a stereotypes. Shame if you studied literature. And I found myself in that position. I am not a math student. I am into languages. I studied French, Arabic, and English, and they refused this. They said, okay, we want you this way. I tried to face them. What I did, I gave up. I didn't study. You know, I dropped out 2 years. I stayed home and I didn't go to school. No, my father didn't know how to manage a dialogue or to converse with you at all. Doesn't believe that. Something that is kind of strict. This is the right thing. This is the right path for you. When he found me that I am strong-headed, I mean, I didn't want to come back to school at all. That's fine. He gave me, I mean, the green light again, as if you are asking something that is impossible. I went back to school. I studied literature, and in the entire my family, I mean, large family, no one of them had or has a master's degree. I mean, the best of them is the BA degree. I succeeded in teaching. I succeeded in having my BA, my master's degrees, and my PhD soon. That's why I'm saying, whenever you believe in yourself, don't let the others decide for you. Decide for yourself. That's what happened to me. I was a victim, I mean, of my parents' choice at the beginning. And I know if I followed if I had followed I mean, their decision, I wouldn't make. I would have, I mean, I don't know. Okay, I would not do what I am doing now.
Thanks for
Parents are
sharing.
not always right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared that, Muhammad. That's a good story of overcoming that kind of thing. It doesn't just have to be about a vocation. It can be about any expectation, right? Have any of you guys ever felt like maybe your parents had some expectation on you and then you couldn't meet that expectation somehow? So you felt like a disappointment to them. Have any of you rest of you guys ever felt anything like that?
I agree with Muhammad. Like if you follow someone else's dreams they have for you and you don't follow your own, you're going to be miserable. You're not going to enjoy anything that you accomplish in life because it's not going to be for yourself. It's going to be for them.
Yeah. My father always wanted me to be an athlete, right? Like, I never was an athlete. Right? I was like the nerdy kid in school, right? Like, into video games and movies and TV and all this stuff. So I definitely faced those lofty expectations. Then my father also has done that to my brother. My father works for the railroad in Mullins, and he did, but he's pretty much bullied my brother into also working for the railroad, even though he doesn't want to. So that's just an example from my own family. Yeah, I see a lot of my father in Mr. Perry. Yes,
If-
I'm sure you guys are just being shy, right? I'm sure many of you have faced this where your parents want you to do something and then you don't, right?
It's quite normal in every family to have this kind of, I mean, of behaviors. I mean, of if there is nothing like participative approach in your family, dialogue with your kids, dialogue with your parents, if there is nothing of this kind, so believe me that there will be, I mean, misery. There will be a problem in the family, and there will be, I mean, some I can say limited choices, limited, I mean, opportunities in your family. It's not successful way to teach your kids the way you want, or the way you learn, or the way you had before. It's all about dialogue. If you are encouraging dialogue in your family, it's fine. If you see the film here, if you just want to talk about the mother, Neil's mother in the film, so sorry about that. The least thing that she can do, she didn't. She could do, she didn't do it. The least thing, when his father decided for him, she didn't kiss him, she didn't hug him, she didn't pat on his back, she didn't say I'm sorry. The only word, go to sleep, go and have something. I think that's why he had that choice. He had that choice to suicide. And this is the reality. If you have no support from your mom, your father is bossy and strict, and even the school is not a place in which you express your inside, what we have inside. The only thing, if you see the dead poets, they resort to, and a cave. Look at the connotation of a cave, emotionally and physically. It's not easy. I mean, it's there, it's clear. I mean, they are suffering, they are in a real trouble. They need someone to help. And the light, or the only light they had in that school, was that teacher. He came with another approach, a new approach to help. So this is, I think this is the society itself. The school in the film represents or reflects the society as a whole. A lot of people are that way. A lot of children, kids are suffering. The only thing they need, they're looking for that kind of torch, someone to take their hands and get them or guide them to the path.
Yeah, a couple of you guys wrote some good stuff to kind of build on what you're saying, Muhammad. Holly, you wrote on your post, you thought Neil's dad was actually jealous of Neil.
Yeah, the way that he talked throughout the film sounded like he had not come from anywhere. He, kept talking about sacrifice and everything he sacrificed for him. I think that Mr. Perry was raised with not as much wealth and not given as much opportunity that Neil has been given in life. And I think he is in a way jealous of him and wants Neil to have to work for, like, to earn everything that Mr. Perry has sacrificed for. I really think that that is kind of why he acts so bad towards Neil in the movie is I think that part of him feels that Neil will never be grateful enough.
Right, Mr. Perry wants that pat on the back, right, for all that he has done, right?
Yes, definitely. I really think that.
Josh, you also had post about Neil's father. You mentioned how horrible he was, right? Anything you want to add?
I really don't know if I have anything to add because I feel like I said what I said in that post.
Right.
Said what needed to be said at least.
Do you feel like he's a redeeming character at all? Right? Is there?
He didn't show any sign of redemption at all. Like, and judging by, certain lines of dialogue that were said by other characters after Neil's suicide, it seems like he just became a lot more immature and selfish. And he just wanted to blame, anyone else besides himself and not take accountability for any of his actions.
Got to build on what you said. I think it's curious that you never see Neil's dad again after the suicide. Like you could see him like they could have filmed it where he's like going into the school demanding Mr. Keating be fired or something. It's curious that you don't see him again. This is a case where absence in film, his absence means something, I think. Yeah. Yeah, you guys all had some great stuff on these those two characters. Jennifer, I like your post too about conformity. You said that there's nothing special about those who conform, right? So tell us what you meant by that.
Did you say me?
Yeah.
Well, the ones that stand out is the ones that makes a difference, and really we make big, that's how the world is. Like, it wouldn't happen without those people. We wouldn't be where we are without those people. And he's one of those people, that the ones that stand out and the ones that don't just blend in with the crowd.
Right. You got to think about all the great people of history, right? Emerson actually says this in his essay, Self-Reliance, right? Think about all the great people of history. I'm going to pull up the quote. It's a lot better when you read it from his own words. Emerson says, "Is it so bad then to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Jesus, and Luther, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood." Right. So, that seems to be the lesson Keating's trying to instill in them, right? At the beginning, he whispers, "Carpe diem, make your lives extraordinary." Right? So not just conforming to and being with the rest of the crowd. The great people of history have broke away from tradition, right? So food for thought there. I love that quote though. To be great is to be misunderstood. Something to think about with your own lives, I suppose. I want to introduce another wrinkle to this conversation, and we've done a good job talking about Keating and Neil and Mr. Perry, but to introduce another layer to the Neil conversation, queer critics of literature, right? Whenever you have within literary study, there's a branch of gender studies for feminism, and but there's within gender studies, there's also what's called queer studies. And that's a that sounds like a nasty word, right? But they take that nasty word and try to make it something positive. But this story is read as an allegory about Neil, perhaps his sexuality, right? Neil, especially with the way that it's, think about the movie set in the 50s, this type of thing wasn't openly expressed, and the whole bit about Neil, his creativity, his desire to be different and be in the play, and all this stuff. It's often, whenever we talk about queer studies, oftentimes it's not just about sexuality per se, it's about difference, right? So if you're different, like that's oftentimes in movies and stuff, difference is a signifier for gay sexuality. So although it's said that there's an interpretation that says this movie is perhaps there's veiled hints at this in the movie. So there's lots of people who have broken down the movie through this lens. What do y'all think of this? Do you feel like we're overanalyzing in this case, or do you feel like perhaps there is a insinuation here that Neil might be different in this way as well? What do you all think? Anybody want to take this one?
I think he was. I think he may or may not have had a thing for Todd, but wouldn't go for it because he really did care about Todd and kept wanting to bring Todd out of his shell. And I don't know if that's just friendly or more.
Right. So those two definitely have a very tight-knit relationship. Right? I definitely agree with you, Brian.
I think we should not give it a more interpretation than it is there. I think it's just a simple relationship because he thought he was his best friend, and we see that. I mean, the end. I mean, of the film when they were shot. I mean, they were shot in by a camera as he was the only person without the hood. You know, I mean, he was. I mean. He bears that, I mean, the cold, and was only interested in looking for his friend in that kind of snow and so on and so on. I don't think it has something to do with the sexuality of the person. I'd like to see it just as we see it, to be different, and differences are in our society in different things, not only in sexuality, because even differences, as we mentioned in your I mean, in what excites you in this life, in what you, I mean, your hobbies, your dreams are totally different from, I mean, from human being. Each one of us, or every one of us, has his own dream. I don't think it can go further to deal with sexuality.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Muhammad. I brought the topic up, but I kind of feel like myself that it's overreaching a bit to think this is what the movie's after.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it too, is I feel like there's definitely an argument to be made for that, and I can see why someone would think that and theorize that, but at the same time, I don't feel like that is how the script was intended to be written. And even though people can find meaning in seeing it in a different light, I don't think that that's what was originally intended.
We can also talk about we are not going to talk about homosexuality in this. If you still remember, I still remember one sentence in the cave when they did, the boy there, they said, he said that I am going to inform the school that the dead poets needs girls in our group.
Hmm.
So they need, females there. Okay. I can go there, and say this.
And when he brought the females into like the cave, everybody was real nervous. They was real shook up
Hmm.
about it.
Yeah, think about how taboo that was even then, right? These traditional schools have traditionally been segregated by gender, right? So like you see these schools for just boys, these schools for just girls, right? I couldn't imagine going to a school like that, right? Yeah, that would drive me crazy. That would have driven me crazy. But these young hormonal boys see the girls, right? Probably for the first time in months. So that's probably why they were acting nervous, Josh. Like not too much interaction with the opposite sex.
I think there's something to add as well, that if you put yourself in the situation, these guys really have no free time besides, their little quote unquote study groups that they have with each other. But they're really like, you bond so closely with these people because you literally have nothing to do because they're spending all this time studying. They're at like a super high grade school. Like these are like becoming more like brothers and siblings than they are just like close friends.
Right? Yeah, you're exactly right, Zach. That's what this type of school, right? That's all they do. Like they have their little groups where they study Latin or whatever. Right? The fact that they even have to time to go do the Dead Poet Society thing, they're actually breaking the rules going out because they're expected to even want to go to bed at a certain time. So it's almost like the military, right? Being in a school like this. I personally am glad that I never went to a school like that. Right? I'm personally glad of that. I think it would be cool to teach at a school like that, but I wouldn't have ever wanted to be a student in a school like that. Yeah. Well, before we end it, Meredith, I told you I was going to get back to you. You mentioned some camera work in some scenes. Please elaborate for us. Tell us what you wrote about them.
This was my first time writing about the camera techniques in a movie, so it was different to watch for that kind of stuff. I wrote about the scene where Todd and Keating were in the classroom, and I wrote about, what else did I write about? Oh, the ending of the film, the slow-mo of Mr. Perry.
Yeah, I like what you said about the scene where the camera spins around, right? In the first scene you mentioned, like the scene where he's getting him to break out of his shell. Right, there's some interesting camera work going on there. Now, Muhammad mentioned another one, like a low angle shot looking up at Mr. Perry. There's some beautiful shots in the film. One of my favorites is when they all run off at night to go to the cave the first time. They're like these little they look like shadowy figures running through the woods.
I have another thing I'd like to mention, but I like it mostly, in the film, which is the time when the mother was waiting waiting for the father and his son Neil to come back home. She was pictured, filmed from the behind,
Mhm.
and a stream of smoke. And the camera followed the stream of the smoke, and there was a cup of wine, alcohol, and cigarettes. But there, in front of there was a picture, and the camera, zoomed on the picture, which there is a father, a mom, and Neil. And look at Neil in that in that picture. He is in a school uniform, smart one, showing that this is the model of the person we want as a hard-working student. Okay, this is another message, from the family. We want you to show you as a picture there to the family, to everyone, that this guy wants to be a doctor. And if you see from the picture, it's not a picture of an actor. I want you to be someone. And that also shows that the mother was nervous because there was alcohol and cigarettes. And you see, I like the image, the picture that was on the table. The picture of the family. Mother is sitting down, the father is there, and Neil in that kind of clothing. Yeah, this is another shot can consider in the film.
We'll have to go back and look for that
Yeah.
picture. That sounds interesting. This, I was gonna pull up, he's talking a lot about the mother, Muhammad.
Yes.
With this shot. Like
Yeah,
she never looks them in the eye, right? She's always behind them. So like the camera work here almost shows the distance between the two characters, right? Like they're nowhere near the same universe with each other even, right? She's way, like, she never even looks him in the eye, right?
Yeah. That's why I say maybe there was no conversation, no dialogues, that's why she is behind him.
I guess to be fair to her, right? If the husband is this, if the father is this condescending to Neil, right? Imagine what he's like to her within that marriage. Right? She's probably terrified to say anything contrary to what he says, because he's the man and he's always right. Right? So I imagine she's a little beaten down.
It could also be she can't face the heartache that they're causing Neil, like crushing his dreams.
Right? That's a hard thing to do to your child, right? See your Zoe,
I like.
or go ahead, Ron.
I was just gonna say I like the camera angle when Knox is riding his bike to the high school to go see Chrissy. That's a really cool camera angle.
Yeah, their relationship in the movie is interesting. That's something we haven't touched on. There's the one scene where he gets a little touchy-feely with her after he's had too much alcohol, right? That scene is I don't know what to make of that scene, frankly.
Makes you feel weird. Like,
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah, don't, man, what are you doing? That's a little rapey. Don't do it.
It was like he was grooming her.
He's petting her like a cat, right? That's what he was doing. That's a scene where I would say he got his just due. He deserved to be beat up for his weird behavior. It's funny that he ends up getting her though, right? He ends up getting the girl. So she could have chosen the jock, right? Who's going back to conformity, right? She could have chosen him, but she chose the poet here, right? So
I liked how he went back to school after reading her that poem, and he was just all smiles, and they was like, "What'd she say?" And he said, nothing. He said, I said it to her though.
Yeah, you don't know whether he's smooth or cringy when he's reading it, right? It's a mix of both. And you ladies in here probably had to deal with gentlemen who are too persistent. Right? You know, he was very persistent.
There is I mean a scene. I mean, when he finished these orders with his son, he went to sleep, and the camera focused and zoomed on the slippers of the father. I don't understand why exactly to zoom the slippers of the father in that scene.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, Mahal, because I was wondering that too. Why it like homes on his slippers for a hot minute there.
My sister, I actually watched the movie with my little sister, and she had something to say about that. She clocked that, and then the way that Mr. Perry had laid Neil's clothes out on the bed. And she said to me, she said, it almost kind of mirrors how Neil's father and the school are kind of similar in that he can't be free because everything is so organized and so perfect and so like conformed. And I thought that was really, really interesting.
Yeah, you're right. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good thought, Holly. Yeah, because when I watched it, it completely slipped my mind. I was like, wow, what's going on with that?
Yeah, my sister, she's a bit of she's a senior in high school, but she's a bit of like a direction film buff. She really enjoys that stuff. So she was really excited to watch the movie with me, give me her thoughts.
I appreciate this interpretation because when I saw it, I said just what is I mean, what does it mean to zoom on the slippers?
Yeah, I kind of expected
you're
it to
right, yeah.
transition to a different scene or something, but it just nothing.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like the type of man to wear slippers. Right? So yeah, that's yeah, I'm glad you guys brought that up because I was scratching my head when I was watching it again too. Like, what's up with that? Yeah, we are almost done with our drama unit. So we only have one more, and that is 1917, the war film we just made just a couple of years ago. 1917, I'll just give you guys a little preview here. 1917 is about this battle during World War I. But the movie is it's not, this movie isn't necessarily about the plot. This movie is a masterclass in direction. I think you guys will, when you guys watch it, it's one long take. The camera follows the character throughout the entire movie. You know, like if it gives you the illusion that there's no editing, that they did it all in one take. So we'll have, I think that Thursday we'll have, or Wednesday rather, I feel like we'll have a lot to talk about when it comes to film, because this film is so masterfully crafted. I remember when I watched it in the theater, I was blown away by it, at how this film is a master class of direction. So you'll especially want to pay attention to camera work and editing as you watch it. And I don't know if any of you guys have
What
done the
movie is it
research.
again?
It's 1917.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very good film. Lots, very well directed. And I have a feeling we'll spend most of our time talking about film, the actual film's jargon, more than plot and character and all that. So I don't know. Have any of you guys looked up to see what streaming service it's on, if there is one? So far, we've had very poor luck with streaming services.
I've just been using Prime for everything.
Yeah, been written on Prime. Yeah, you can rent on Prime or YouTube or Microsoft or whatever your store is. I don't think it's available on anything. I looked and I couldn't find it. So hopefully as the course goes on, we'll have better luck with stuff on streaming services. Netflix used to have a ton of stuff, but since they've gone to more original content, a lot of that stuff isn't on there anymore. So it's a headache trying to keep up with it. But we'll do 1917, and next Monday, a week from now, that'll actually be a day you guys will have to watch a film, because I'll spend that day discussing writing with you all, writing the first major paper. So it'll be like English class that day. Okay.
By the way, I watched the film you mentioned on Facebook, The Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like it. And I
Really?
like the films. Yeah.
Yeah, I taught
Did
that
you
in
teach
film.
it?
I taught that in film class last year, and yeah, that's a challenging movie to teach, just because of all the sexual violence and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And yeah, I have another Kubrick movie on the list this time, 2001: The Space Odyssey. That's what I have in Kubrick this time. But yeah, we'll move from miscellaneous dramas to old style detective movies this time next week. Okay. So I'll hang around for a second after class in case any of you guys want to ask me anything. But till then, you guys take care, and I'll see you later. The 1917 question I'll probably put up tomorrow, because I need to watch the movie again before I can write the questions. I'll probably watch the movie tonight, get your questions up tomorrow. Okay. So take care, guys.
Thank you.